Thanks to Mego, the face of madness returns. Here's your look at the Mego Texas Chainsaw Massacre Leatherface 8-inch action figure. Marty Abrams, aka the father of the action figure, has relaunched these figures in response to an overwhelming demand. Mego, pronounced Mego Corporation, was started by his father David Abrams in 1954 and named by his younger brother Howard, who would say Mego too. Howard later became head of sales for the company. Mego Corporation has sold over 20 million of its now standard 8-inch action figures worldwide, and Mego Corporation is proud to take over that fine heritage today. While Leatherface hacks and slashes his way for a new generation, no, not that other Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Next Generation, which I still personally think is one of the best Texas Chainsaw Massacres. You can fight me if you want. Let's go ahead and grab first the tape measure just to see how tall the figure stands. Right to the very top of the head I go, and the figure of Leatherface from Mego stands 7 inches in height, or the figure is 18 centimeters tall. Somewhat of a polarizing sequel, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a sequel only to the very first film. Sally Hardesty does come back, even though unfortunately it's a different actress that does play her. Leatherface does come back, considerably older and showing more of his face than he ever did before, and he's still wielding his chainsaw, even as old as he may be. Netflix did end up picking up the movie, which I believe sat in limbo for a while. It was initially planned, I believe, to be a theatrical release, and unfortunately that just got axed or chainsawed altogether. Certainly when it comes to merchandise, when it comes to the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, there's very few and far between things that have even come out, but you can always count on Mego to be the ones that deliver some of the more obscure or most wanted pieces. As we have a look at here, Leatherface, his design is different, and apparently he's only keeping his skin mask on by spit alone. One of the only few accessories the figure comes included with, is his chainsaw. Now, his chainsaw is fairly small. It doesn't look as well that it's ever been really used. Blood would have been certainly nicely seen if they could have only put it on the teeth or somewhat splattered across the chainsaw. I mean, it looks like he just bought this brand new at a hardware store. It does fit into his hands, although with the Mego brand of figures, sometimes getting them things in their hands are a little harder to do. Yet Leatherface does a pretty good job of actually palming the chainsaw. And with the elbow bend that they actually accommodate to this figure, you can actually take then the other hand and attach it onto the handle of the chainsaw. Usually when you end up doing this, one hand ends up popping off the handle, and then you have to rinse and repeat until eventually you get it in place. I don't know why. For some reason now I'm having a tough time to do this, but it does technically clip into both of his hands. Let's try that again. I don't want to think that I'm just going to give up on doing this. Plug this in both his hands, and yeah, like I said, it does fit in both of his hands. I mean, with the elbows being only single hinges, you can only do so much, really, when it comes to him holding a chainsaw. Wielding it over his head, not only would you not be able to do that in the figure, but I think Leatherface, at the age that he is, wouldn't be able to swing a chainsaw as well as he did as in his younger years. Going ahead and removing this and putting that to the side, getting a closer look at Leatherface with a brand new skin mask. I would debate the question of whether this really does look like actress Alice Krige. I don't know how, first of all, this would even stretch across Leatherface's much larger face. And even by the fact he didn't even sew it onto his face, he literally just cuts it off her face and then just sticks it on. And I guess just the blood and the slime and everything else that would have been underneath the skin would have been more than enough to attach it onto his face. I really hope nobody's eating while we're doing this review. Head sculpt, actually, for what it is pretty good. The details from what we actually see in the movie, and though this isn't probably everyone's going to be favorite design of Leatherface, it does look fairly good to be like a Leatherface figure. Like, I would almost even imagine that this would be the kind of head sculpt, and no faulting Mego to say this, but I would almost expect this kind of head sculpt to be one that would be used for like a NECA retro cloth figure, not something from the likes of Mego. And I don't mean to diminish Mego's importance when it comes to releasing collectible dolls, as this is really a good-looking Leatherface. You can see there's the blood around his eyes and certainly also around his mouth. How, again, on earth this guy's able to even stick this onto his face, run around, chase people, be covered in rain, and yet this mask never falls off his face is a remarkable feat. You can see the sculpted hair on the back is nicely done. You got a couple of different tones of brown that's been used. I even like the little flap of what would have been originally Alice's ear. Again, like, how is this a woman's face that's now been stretched across this brute's face is beyond me. I like the way they've sculpted the eyes. The paint is actually pretty good on the teeth also as well. And it's also got that sort of clamminess that would go along with skin that's just been removed from someone's face. I'm not speaking from example. You can also see as well, it looks like he's also got like a secondary ear. I guess that would be just his ear underneath. It's just kind of a weird place in which they put it. You can see it's just right at the top there, unless it's not even supposed to be an ear. Maybe it's like a piece of food or something he was eating. I'm guessing it probably is his ear, though. Overall, it's a nice-looking head sculpt. It's a little limited on the articulation department end of things, though, because it's supposed to really have a ball joint, but really you're not going to get much in the way of articulation when it comes to this figure's head sculpt. As certainly goes for the rest of the figure's body, it's okay. Like, it's pretty close to what he would have had in the movie. He's got sort of a more grayish shirt, a tie in the front, because even when he's killing people, he always likes to dress for the part. He does have his apron on, and the apron looks like it's got smeared, not necessarily with blood, but it looks like he's been coloring it more than anything else. There's a few little stains you can see there of gray. There's a little bit of red down below there. It doesn't really evoke the sense that he's been slaughtering people in mass quantities. I really wish they could have put some serious saturation of blood splattered across his apron. Of course, underneath that, he does have just regular black pants. The thing about Mego figures is the idea is that you can always dress them up and you can dress them down. Because of that, they always end up putting real shoes on these figures, which you can actually take them off. And I can't imagine Leatherface has been washing those feet anytime soon, so probably don't get too close to the camera. But because these are softer plastic, I mean, they fit on fine, but it does cause a little bit of teetering issues when you get this figure to stand. Sometimes I do often wish that they could have just used hard plastic for the shoes. I know. It defeats the whole purpose of a Mego figure, but at the very least, if you do put on shoes like this, I mean, look how floppy around they are when it comes to the figure. Poor Leatherface even trying to stand, let alone wielding a chainsaw. For the figure's articulation, it's again what you would expect with Mego. So the head is on what looks again to be like a ball joint, but again, you're really not going to be doing much of anything when it comes to up and down motion, but you can rotate it back and forth. Maybe it's only just by a peg. It kind of feels like it does move up and down a little bit. It's probably maybe just a peg though. Shoulders do come out, I would say, safely at a 90-degree angle bend. You can bring the arms forward. You can also bring them back. There is a swivel there also happening, just single hinge only on the elbow, and hands rotate also back and forth. There's a waist swivel also as well. Legs do split out. Pretty good splits also for Leatherface at a man his age. You take the legs, you can move them forward. You can take the legs, move them back. There's not really a swivel or anything happening in the thigh. However, there's a hinge on the knee, and then there's the articulation. Well, let me just again take off. Don't get too close, but there is technically articulation in the feet, but it almost becomes sometimes null and void when you start adding things like footwear. Again, overall, it's a nice looking Leatherface. Not that I would want to consider the idea of deconstructing this guy, but for as good as the head sculpt may be, I might even consider the idea of actually taking this guy apart, taking the clothing off of him, hoping probably he's been washed since then, taking off the head and seeing if I can maybe use it on a retro cloth body, because the head sculpt is actually really good on this guy. Not that Mego have not delivered good head sculpts in the past, but I gotta say it's certainly one of the better ones they've gotten. And it's also one of the few figures of the new Leatherface that we've actually gotten, whether you like the new movie or not. I mean, you think Halloween's got a disrupted timeline. I think Leatherface has it beat with all the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies that have happened. Each one of the movies always wants to be a sequel to the movie that came before, or usually often the original 74 original. But often at times it always means that Leatherface in each movie has a brand new family or is doing something different than he did in the movie before. In the case with the new Leatherface Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie that is currently now available, I think, over on Netflix, the movie itself is supposed to take place years after only the original, I think scrapping all the sequels that would have happened in the middle. And for some reason, he's living now with a woman upstairs, and through the process of her dying, he now wears her face. And again, I find it a little far-fetched that he'd be able to take a woman's small, finer features and stretch it across his mammoth-sized melon head. And yet, no stitching is required. Literally, just the spit and the blood alone is enough to keep it attached onto his face. One thing I didn't also mention in this review, it does have the little beard that sticks out the bottom. Some of it looks like it's blood. Most of it does look like the little beard hair that he's got tucking out the bottom of it. Again, I like the new Leatherface, and I like the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think the thing I like about it is it takes place in a different environment. It's fine and good to have the homestead, the farmstead, and teens running away from the house, but after a while, it's nice to kind of change things up a little bit. Maybe that's one of the reasons why I like Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation. Don't judge me, please. I like the new sequel, and I certainly hope that we are going to be getting subsequent sequels featuring the brand new Leatherface. And again, really, when you think about it, Mego's the only company I can think of, maybe other than Hiya. Hiya Toys is also planning to release an exquisite mini of this same Leatherface. But Mego's the only one that's really been brave enough to step up to plate and say, yeah, you know what, we're going to release a new Texas Chainsaw Massacre Leatherface, whether you like the movie or not. I like the movie. I like the figure also as well. What do you guys think of the figure? Let me know down below in the comments section. And maybe be a polarizing topic to bring up, but let me know also down below in the comment section what you guys thought of the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, whether, of course, you've seen it or not. Also, as well, if you enjoyed this video, I want to hit it with a like. If you're loving the content you guys are seeing and certainly do want to stick around for more, please and thank you. Make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and turn on the ever-crucial bell notification. We're going to have a lot more videos coming your way. Pretty much goes without saying. So make sure you're coming back to this channel on a most regular basis. And as always, guys, I'll see you guys next time.